My name is Gina Montoya, and I'm going to share with you my journey of lifelong learning. Before we get started, I would like to thank Dr. Patsy Boveri for this assignment, as it has been an opportunity of self-reflection with a different view than I have ever applied before. I joked with my family and friends while working on this project, as it felt a lot like therapy, but without the therapist. This course has covered the philosophical foundations of several learning theories as they are applicable to the adult learner. I'd like to highlight and provide you my interpretation of these theories as we have focused on them during the semester and how I applied them as a basis for this assignment. While doing the research, I realized learning theories presented in this class are but a drop in the bucket of the many theories of learning that exist. First off, we have behaviorism. As I see it, this is an application of learning where the learner receives either a reward or reinforcement based on the successful completion of a learning task. For adults, an example is doing a good job at work, and it results in a bonus, a raise, or a promotion. Or the delivery of the silent treatment when someone doesn't perform as you would expect. When a learner is focused inward on self-learning and the instructor is there as a facilitator of that learning experience, this is representative of the humanistic learning theory. This theory, to me, is predominantly what I think can be represented as an indirect application of lifelong learning. If you think about it, parents can apply this learning theory when teaching their children by letting them learn from experience. And as adults, it's represented in a person wanting to learn something and taking a course or asking someone superior in that task to teach us. Some examples include hiring a personal trainer, taking a financial course for planning retirement, or learning from your grandmother how to make a family favorite dish. Next, we have cognitive learning. This is learning that can be demonstrated as input to the brain. Some mental processing takes place, and the output results in a reaction or action being conducted by the learner. These are brain-based skills we carry out for any task, from the simplest to the most complex. Learning to tie your shoes, table manners, using a screwdriver, lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, solving quadratic equations, and even the application of judgment and decision are all good examples. I feel social learning is another theory that many people use as part of a lifelong learning. This is when we observe others and imitate or model the desired behavior or skill. If you think of children involved in role play, or perhaps when someone is at a club headed to the dance floor to learn a specific line dance for the first time, you are witnessing social learning. Application of this learning theory is often how we model our behavior when we are invited to another person or group's environment. As we go through life, we all have experiences. And when we reflect on these experiences, in order to learn, we are applying the learning theories of constructivism. If you can visualize an intricate weave taking place in the mind, then you can see how our memories, our responses and reactions, and our associations intertwine and align. And finally, we get to andragogy. This is not only the crux of our course, but what we are all experiencing as adults right now. When I think about this learning theory, I consider this the inverse of pedagogy. And actually, as I break down the etymology of the word, what I get is the theory of man-led learning. Research for this project identified that there are so many other learning theories out there, and this website has a pretty interesting ebook available that seemed to cover many learning theories. To summarize, I focused this self-analysis on behaviorism, humanism, social learning, cognitism, constructivism, and andragogy learning theories. And now for the fun. Let me take you on a short journey into my life and identify how I have learned. I divided my life into 3 large periods, and I called them the early years, the middle years, and adulthood. The early years of life are a sample from birth to about 10 years of age. To conduct this self-reflection, I had to figure out what memories would be examined and what that examination represented in regards to learning. I focused on birth order, play, academic learning, and outside observations. I am the oldest of 3 children in my immediate family. Also, it's important to identify I am the oldest of my extended family on both my mother and father's sides. Because of this placement of birth order, I feel that there were immense expectations for me to be responsible. At family functions, I was always placed in charge of the other children in my family. Typically, I was not only responsible for my own behavior, but I was beholden to my elders for the behavior of my younger siblings and cousins. So what did I learn from all of this? Well, I believe this shaped me to be a leader, and I learned the art of effective persuasion. To avoid getting in trouble, it was easier to guide us in an activity that I knew would prevent conflict. In all reality, what I was doing was applying conflict resolution skills, and I didn't even realize it. I found a short video clip on birth order, and I'm going to share it with you now. It came from the magazine Parents. I do feel that my birth order had bearing on how I learned, but also I think I was able to have these learning experiences because the first 3 needs of Maslow's hierarchy were met. My parents provided me a safe home where I didn't go hungry. I was raised in a loving family, and I had a sense of belonging. I feel my birth order contributed to generating self-esteem. I don't believe at 10 years of age you can fully comprehend or achieve self-actualization, but I knew I had a place in my family and I had a role to fulfill, which I try to do to the best of my capability. However, I think that more as a result of behaviorism, that reward and reinforcement was what conditioned my learning. I did do some reflection on the toys I played with and the games I participated in as a child. It's proven that play is significant in how children learn. Some of my favorite toys were building blocks, like Lincoln Logs, Legos, Connects. I also played a lot of games like Risk, Monopoly, and Perfection. I played other games like Speed, Solitaire, and Slapjack. When we were told to go play, our go-to games included tag or chase, or playing house, or school. In the application of formal academic education, I was raised in a time of pedagogic learning. I received good grades, and I don't feel I struggled any more or less in one specific subject. I read at an advanced level for my age and find this hobby to still be a favorite pastime. I remember early on firmly believing that reading is knowledge and knowledge is power. So what did I ascertain from the review and analysis of myself in these early years? Well, much of my play shaped my skills of strategy that I use today. I feel I was strengthened from the application of social learning, and this continues today. These learning theories have proven influential throughout my life, and I have used them to shape and guide me through the learning in my teens and adulthood. The next period of my life is the middle years, and I bound this period from the ages of 11 to 17 years old. I selected a few experiences in this time frame that I felt were typically pretty monumental for most teenagers. These included learning to drive, the basic life skills, self-awareness, and really trying to identify who I was. Let me share a little anecdote with you that I often share with friends who have children of prepubescent age. I start off with, "Oh no, I better warn you now. Soon your child's brain is just going to fall out of their head. This usually happens between the ages of 12 and 14 years old. Your son or your daughter will see their brain land on the floor. They'll walk right over it, kick it under the bed, move it around, hide it, misplace it. Somewhere at the age of 18 to maybe 25, they will come across their brains again. They will recognize it and they will say, 'Oh, my brain. Why were you out here?' They'll pop it back in their head." I tell you this story as I caution parents that their children will probably make a lot of mistakes during this time, but it's not their fault. They have lost their mind. Now that I have completed this course, I feel much more inclined to say that preteens or early teenagers do not lose their brain. That's right. Their brain stays right inside of their head. It just goes under a long-term, heavy construction period. As a teenager, I too had to identify who I was and who I wanted to be, and this really meant there was a lot of work going on. For example, learning to drive involved many different learning theories. I used the application of visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learning, influenced by both constructivism and behavioral learning, to work on the motor skills of driving and the preparation for the written exam. There was also the application of classical conditioning when I needed to learn rudimentary steps like adjusting the mirrors and turning on the lights. I applied social learning theory as I watched others drive to mimic their skills and their behaviors. In addition, I began to learn basic life skills at about the age 15. I felt this was beneficial because it allowed me time to practice the skills before I was grown and I had to apply them in the real world. My high school offered courses in basic life skills and home economics. I was able to have these skills reinforced by my parents as they had me apply them while I was still living under their roof. This learning covered a wide range of skills such as how to manage a budget, how to grocery shop and prepare meals, sewing, and learning household chores. The abstract life skills I learned included setting goals and understanding who I was. Self-awareness or self-identification is probably one of the most crucial development activities that takes place while you are a teenager. This is the transformation of child to adult. Both inward and outward reflection really should be taking place. In order to mature into adulthood, one needs to develop the ability to be self-fulfilling, but also needs to have consideration and respect for others. It should be obvious there is a significant amount of learning and growing going on with teenagers every single day, and in so many different ways. So that brings us to adulthood. This is the largest period of time, and really it could be broken into several subcategories. But for the interest of this assignment, I just want to highlight a few noteworthy moments in my life that I feel were highly focused on learning. The first of these moments is when I became a mother. From the moment I first realized I was going to have a baby, I started learning. There is so much preparation to do in such a short amount of time. Even though I had been involved in the care of siblings and cousins, and by that time I had babysat dozens of times, It was different when it came to your own child. I am confident the application of all the learning theories were applied. This was transformative learning in action. After my daughter was born, what I really had to do was learn how to be a teacher. As you can see with the small collage of pictures, there is so much that you have to teach your child. With each of these events, you are also learning how to parent. It is really a whirlwind of learning. Another big event in my adulthood was when I decided to go to college. What I had to do, and with a quickness, was learn how to balance life and all of its demands. I started college after the birth of my first daughter, and went on for my bachelor's before my second daughter was born. I also worked full time. Because there was so much to balance, my study techniques were vital to allow me to pass my classes. There was a great amount of learning going on during this time in my life. And the last moment that I want to reflect on in my adulthood is that of employment. From going to just having a job to getting some positions that is more satisfying and working all the way to having a career is a series of learning application. I conducted an informal formal poll of friends and coworkers and asked them if they would share a moment or their observation of me learning. This sample is of past and current peers in my employment history. Each coworker identified a scene and I analyzed it and associated it to a learning theory. Collectively, these theories are constructivism, andragogy, and social learning. I did complete 2 learning inventories to see how I learned. One was a short questionnaire comprised of 20 questions from Education Planner website, and the other was Mel Metallic's Learning Styles questionnaire, which had 70 questions. And what I discovered is that I was an auditory learner and I prefer to learn in solidarity. In summary, the learning experience I have had so far has been like a winding road over the hills, over the hillside. I had to pay attention to the curves of the road so I would remain focused. Like the climb of a hill, I had to try harder at some points in my life, but the descent times seem to happen with ease. The items on the side of the road are important, but I only have time to catch a glimpse. I can see what is before me, and I am able to look back from where I came. I understand now that I have been learning all along, and that learning is the reward.